We do a layoff, we decrease production. We didn't have enough traction on our brand yet to really fill the void. People like that are, by business standards, very successful, but that's one of the things that comes along with it. You can't, and I'm figuring that out now, you can't do everything. Like the diehards that get upset because because all the girls are wearing white boots that are plastic, or because such and such is, wearing his hat backwards and doesn't even realize it. But the way I see it is, hey, just like, hey, your fly's undone. Just go tap the guy on the shoulder and say, hey, flip that thing around, cowboy. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, yeah, it's kind of goofy, but they just want to be like you.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Cowboy Show. I'm Crockett Carruthers, your host, and today we got Caiden Fenoglio of Fenoglio Boot Company. Y'all have probably seen or heard of the boots, I hope, at least, if you're in the Western industry. Yes. And how's it going, Caiden?
I'm just happy to be sitting in a chair that's not a truck seat. Not an easy trip anywhere that I go. But happy to be here, man.
Cool. So I wanted to... We'll get into what you do, but I wanted to kind of know the history. Y'all have got a pretty cool story about the boot company and where it came from, and really deeply rooted in Texas and the cowboy boot.
If you own a business that sells a product or service in the Western or ag industries and you want that business to grow, go to the link down below, fill out the form, and we'll see if you qualify for free social media marketing.
I'm in Nocona, which is north central Texas, and most people that are familiar with cowboy boots are familiar with the Nocona name, and I constantly have to build the association and the disassociation between us and Nocona boot. But I'll start back in the 1870s. So H.J. Justin, known locally as Daddy Joe Justin, he moved into Spanish Fort around the late 1860s, I believe, from Illinois. And he was actually cutting hair in Spanish Fort. Spanish Fort was a river crossing before cowboys hit the Indian territory. Mm-hmm. So it was actually a little community established before Nocona was. But he cut hair, and I think he had worked under a cobbler when he was in Illinois. So through this, as the story goes, through conversation with the cowboys passing through, they said, hey, I need a new pair of boots, but I'm not gonna have any money till we get back down here after we deliver these cows. And he said, well, I can build you some boots. And the history is there. They started taking orders that he would deliver on their way back through from Kansas on the way back down. So and then they built a rail depot in Nocona 1884, I believe, and he moved him and his shop and his family into Nocona around that time. Talk about full circle. The original Justin Leather Goods Company building, which is now our community center, is right across the street from our factory store. But lots of history there, that. Mm-hmm. But he had 7 kids. The oldest of which is John Justin, probably the most notable. But H.J., Daddy Joe, he died in 1918, and it was his 3 sons that wanted to move the Justin Company to Fort Worth, because Fort Worth had just built the bigger rail depot, and they had the packing house and leather tanneries and the whole deal, which is probably a good business decision on their part looking back. But they finally made all that happen in 1924, and their sister Enid Justin, which the whole family worked there making boots and assorted leather goods at that time, she didn't want to leave. Daddy didn't want us to go. Daddy wanted to stay here. I'm gonna stay here. So 1925, Enid Justin started the Nocona Boot Company the year after her brothers left, in direct competition with them, which is interesting for the times because it's the 1920s. She was a single woman business owner, and they say she was pretty hard-nosed, as you would imagine. But she made it what it was. The start of it was her traveling around with samples in her Model T, and it became one of the biggest names in the industry, if not the biggest. They built the big factory building on the highway in 1940 something when she had a government contract making combat boots, and that's the one that anybody that passes through town is familiar with. It still has the big Nocona boot neon. Now there's a brewery on one end of it, and they make the ball gloves on the other end of that building. Ours was on the west side of town, but we got the whole Enid Justin era. It lasted the entirety of her life. She was married twice, divorced twice, had a kid, lost the kid, and I can't remember who her first husband was, but her second husband was Julius Stelzer of Olson Stelzer Boot Company. So, and from what I know, both of her ex-husbands started boot companies after they divorced. So she was I think there was like a running joke.
It's funny. There's lots of branches from the original Justin. Keeps branching off.
So you'll get a kick out of this. But her, there was still, they were family, so there's still ongoing conversation between John Justin, the brothers, and her. And they said, after the second divorce, they said, Enid, you need to quit getting married because every time you split up with one of them, they become competition.
Yeah.
But, towards the end of her life, failing health and everything, no heirs, she sold the Nocona company back to Justin. So, and at that point, I don't know where they were. Justin had bought Tony Lama as well. When Warren Buffett bought the entirety of the Justin brands, they also had Acme Brick. So it was Nocona, Tony Lama, Justin, Acme. Not Acme Boots. I know that can be confusing, but but that was, I want to say, the mid 80s. And they kept it. Justin kept the Nocona company in Nocona until 1999, and they closed down the factory there. At that point, I think in the heyday, they had over 400 employees making almost 2,000 pair a day, which is crazy in a community of 3,000. But
probably like the whole lifeblood of
like everybody community. At some point worked for Nocona Boot. My grandma, she still runs some collection calls and stuff for us, even though she's 80, because that's what she used to do out there. But yeah, it was August 3rd, 1999 when they shut the factory down. I've actually got some little shadow box with newspaper clippings in our store. At that point, they had 150 or so people. But let's see, we're at 1999. So my plant manager, his name's Trey Hellinger. His dad was also a plant supervisor for Nocona the day that they closed, and then his granddad was a plant supervisor for Nocona, decades before that. So he's third generation bootmaker. But his dad, when Nocona shut down, started a small boot shop called the Itty Bitty Boot Company in his garage with like a handful of the displaced Nocona employees. And that lasted about a year, and he connected with the Williams brothers. So Bill and Jim Williams, they're from Highland Park. They were ostrich dealers, so they worked for the biggest ostrich cannery in the world, dealing ostrich skins in the U.S. So they'd been coming to Nocona for years selling ostrich, and they had a relationship with Cavenders, and we know Cavenders. So Bill and Jim established I think that's when they took the Larry Mahan name, and they started making the Larry Mahan collection in Nocona in 2001 that was exclusive to Cavenders. And that lasted until 2012. Cavenders had some kind of falling out with Mahan. It became the Cavenders Boot Collection. So this is all private label production, but they're still making a lot of boots. Probably 40,000 pair a year. So we're getting closer to current times.
Yeah.
So Bill and Jim, not really boot people, but business people. They play their game for the longest. They always lived in Dallas, but they spent time back and forth. And I honestly don't know what made them decide that they didn't want to do it anymore. But my uncle, so this is my mom's middle brother. His name's James. So he works for these guys for a while as like on a consulting basis. He goes and sets up some trade shows and sources equipment and just kind of manages things in town because, we're local and they weren't the current owners. So whenever they all determined that they were going to get out of the business, James goes to my grandpa, and they're partners on a lot of things. And he says, there's 60 some odd people out here. It's a well-established business, probably one of the biggest local employers outside of the school districts. And you want to buy it? So this is April 2014. The Monteg Boot Company, which was what it was under Bill and Jim, it became the Fenoglio Boot Company. So we're still doing the private label thing, still doing pretty high volume, but nothing has our name on it. So I want to say it was the later part of that year. James called me and he said, "Hey, I bought the boot company and I kind of need some help." I was like, "Well, my lease is up in April of next year. I'll be there." I, at the time, I was living in College Station. I went to school in Huntsville. I worked for Cavender's at the store in College Station. It was a good gig for a college kid. I think I made more money when I left there than when I came to work for my family. Neither here nor there. But, yeah, school and me, like I did enough that they didn't kick me out, but they didn't ask me to come back either.
Yeah.
And
weren't making the dean's list.
Yeah. I got some other funny stories about that. If they come up, I won't bring them up. But if they come up, I'll tell you. But that was the spring of 2015 that I came on board. I had no title. I had a computer and a fax machine. I supplied my own computer. But he just handed me like a Rolodex and said, "You're the purchasing officer." I was like, "What does that mean?" "Well, you're going to buy everything." "Okay, so I get to shop for a living." Well, that's not really how it works. But I went with it. And I wasn't even 22. I was 21. And I just started calling. And they're like, "Well, we used to deal with James Odom, and we've only dealt with such and such, and we don't know you." And it's hard to break into when some guys have been doing things the same way for so long. But
yeah.
I started
had some resistance there.
Oh, like bad. So I just started telling everybody I was 30 if it came up.
Yeah.
Because on the phone it's hard to tell, but then we'd meet in person somewhere to market, or I'd go see them, or they'd come see us. People don't do it as much as they did back then, and I say back then 10 years ago. It's really not that long ago, but it was much different. But people would still come to the factory and show you samples and visit. Now everything's through Skype or WhatsApp or whatever, and it's like you don't see anybody in person, which isn't the worst thing. But nonetheless, I got it all figured out, and it just kind of snowballed into designing when we started our own brand, which we started the Fenoglio boot collection and did our branding in 2016, because we had always wanted to have our own line of boots, but it was the private label thing was still the bread and butter. So
was there like a non-compete or anything there on that deal, or is it just you could do whatever you wanted?
Well, and this ended up biting us in the butt later on, but nothing was contractual. So it was, and I'm not going to say anything negative about Cavender's. It was a good gig for as long as it was. And I got the opportunity to meet James Cavender on a handful of occasions, and he was a class act, man. Everybody in the organization called him Old Man Cavender. But yeah, got to spend some time with him at the later end of his life. But business is business, and they have, I think, I'm trying to recall, they just recently sold to the same people that bought Whataburger, I believe, and they're talking about expanding 20 some odd stores this year or something. So I mean, they have that enterprising mindset. But the Cavender's boys around 2018 kind of cut us in half. So we do a layoff, we decrease production. We didn't have enough traction on our brand yet to really fill the void. But we hadn't put that much into it either. So at that point, it was like, hey, we need to dedicate more to the things that we control, which is our brand. and I don't know how many Instagram followers we have. Probably it's 20,000 plus, and seems like not so long ago that we had one. But 2019 rolls over. They had I got wind of it because I still was pretty connected with some of the GMs and the salespeople at Cavender's, and they said, hey, they're bringing in a new line, and it says pretty much the same thing, but they look a lot different. And I was like, well, that's not a good sign. But turns out they had another private label collection they're having made down in Mexico that they probably made more money off of, better margin stuff. And our numbers went from 40,000 one year to 20,000 the next to like 14 the year after that, and then they just stopped ordering.
What do you think was holding y'all back in this, like kind of in that transition time of just taking the leap to go harder on your own?
So nobody really sees the back end of business. But if I were to guess, most of the more notable brands that most people are familiar with have a handful of silent investors. In our case, we had one. It was my granddad. So we didn't have the funds, and we were just trying to make it on our own. And, there's people that offered, and people still do, to, like, hey, yeah, we got some money. We want to invest. We want to help. And it's like, that sounds pretty good right now, but I'm only 30 years old, and I've been at this since I was a kid. And I can see myself at the point not too far from now that I'm making every single decision that we have, and I don't want anybody to breathe down my neck on those decisions. So if there's a way to do it on our own, that's how I want to keep it.
So y'all sacrifice kind of that growth, that fast growth, just to do it on your own. It's a little bit slower way, but hopefully have the same destination.
Ideally. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's goal in one way or another is to make money, even though money's not the most important thing, but we don't make much. I'm very clear to most people about that when it comes up. I've sacrificed a lot of money just to be able to stay where I am and do something that is fun most days.
At least you get to wear cool boots, though.
Well, and that question comes up a lot. How many pairs of boots do you have? I've got like 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, because every time I make something new, it ends up on somebody else. So. But, I get to express my creative freedom without any guidelines, really. So that part's cool. But, I live 3/4 of a mile from my office and 3/4 of a mile from our factory store. And if I ever need to be somewhere, now that I've got kids in Cali, I'm right there. So you can't put a dollar value to that. But I just got to figure out how to make everything else kind of happen, because we hit that limbo phase where it's like, hey, this brand is not ready to stand alone, but now it has to. And there's been scary times, and right now, the economy the way it is, that's scary too. But I've got enough faith that if we continue to do it the right way, the way that I consider the right way, like keep people employed locally, and give those people that we have that are craftsmen and don't even realize how talented they are, to continue to give them an opportunity and give myself an opportunity to stay close to home, and I'll make it work.
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's like a battle, doing things on my own and like going into sales and learning about business and stuff. And you read all these books and see all these other people doing really good. And it's like you want to be there and you want it right now. You're on the right path. But it's like, when is it coming? Like, gosh, it'd be nice to be able to pay for things and pay off bills and get your head above water. But you're on the right path, and it's coming one day. It's just like, when is that day gonna come?
I have these little voices that kind of resonate in my head, and one of them that speaks the loudest is Keith Maddox. Did you ever meet Keith Maddox? So anybody that doesn't know Keith, the former owner of American Hat, he passed away 3 or 4 years ago. His wife and daughters are in charge now, and Mundy, who's his main man. But Maddox was a fun-loving but pretty wise guy, and anytime that this conversation came up with him between us, like, when's it going to happen? When's it going to hit? Like, when does it just get easy? And he's like, because at that point, American Hat was what it was and is what it is. And it's, he said, well, I always knew that I was going to be successful. I just didn't know it'd take this damn long.
Yeah.
And, he was 70 some odd years old at the time. But he's like, you're going to grind and you're going to want to quit every day at some point. And one day you're just going to hit the top of the hill and start rolling down. And then it will be easy. And he's like, there's really no way to tell when it's going to be. That's why you just have to wake up every day and plug it. So.
And it's hard. You got to keep the whole time like you're struggling, but you got to keep putting money into your business, because if you don't put money into it, if you don't market, if you don't, do the things necessary, then it's never going to go anywhere. So it's like the point of no return, I guess.
Well,
and especially y'all, you're trying to keep a small town afloat basically, and keep, you got a lot of other people depending on you and all that. And, me and Dale talked about that. Was he's kept his operation in a small town, and he knows he can get bigger going somewhere else, and it might be a smarter decision, but he's going to do it that way. And, has a connection to that small town. And
he's done a really cool thing out there though. I must say. But yeah, so, I'll tell you why it's so important to stay where I am. And my kids are the 7th generation to live in Nocona. So I was the 4th generation to graduate from Nocona High School. And my grandparents are like 3 miles this way. My mom's like 4 miles this way. And we are pretty close knit. And that's why I say you can't really put a dollar value to it, because it felt commonplace to me for the longest time until I got into the world and realized how disconnected families are, and how hard it can be to do things completely on your own. I'm not on my own. I've got lots of help on the back end. So I don't mean to make it sound bad, but it is stressful some days.
Yeah.
And I have another little expression that resonates with me. It's the worst thing about family business is family.
Yeah. How is that? Do you have is somebody in the family very business minded and educated on business, and like who's mentoring that? Because that's a whole business it can be a very complicated thing. I mean, it's math if you break it down, but there's a lot of moving parts to it. So who's that to y'all? And like, are y'all getting mentors by somebody? And
I have people on the outside that I look to, because the thing about your family is that you spend so much time together that you really don't sit and listen the way that you should, because it just kind of feels redundant. And I try to backpedal when that pops into my head and say, hey, have a little more patience and take what you can while you can. But my granddad, which this is a little complicated because it's my mom's dad, but I have the Fenoglio name because when my mom and dad split up, I took my mom's maiden name, and it full circle, it was, the best thing that could have happened to me. But my mom's dad, my mom has 2 older brothers. Robert, which is my granddad, he had great mentorship from his dad and his uncles, and he was handed some business that he made flourish. He bought into his own, and he's always been, as long as I can remember, he's been very diversified and successful, and everybody loves him. And he's also very generous. And that, Bedros Keuilian says this on his podcast a lot. He says, there's nothing wrong with making money. Money's not evil. He says, make a lot of money and do something good with it. And that's what my grandpa does. And he stays pretty silent about the whole thing, but he donates a lot to the church and the community. He's been the mayor for I don't know how many terms. And that's not a paid position in Nocona. And it's always his fault anytime there's something wrong. And, he just eats it. And I'm like, gosh, how do you take that? but he really just genuinely cares for people. And I think that's one of the driving reasons that he's been so successful, is that he wanted to always be able to take care of us and everybody that he could. But, you know, he's got some like crude oil production wells, saltwater disposal, you know, so we made a fair amount of money in the oil and gas business. And he's had a barbecue restaurant that's in an old filling station right on the highway. He's had that since 1973. And that's how most people know him, is like he's the little old man with the mustache behind the counter. But he's probably my greatest mentor. I love him more than, you know, almost more than anybody I can imagine. And he's up there. He's pushing 80, and you can start, you know, you can kind of tell. So that's kind of sad, but we've got a lot of similar interests that, which that plays into a different part of my life that we can get to in a bit. But there's also, James. So James, my mom's middle brother, he's the owner of the boot company. I should preface that. I don't own the boot company. But he never had any kids, and he had a pretty heavy hand in raising me, and we've been pretty close always. And he's a good businessman, and he's honest, and he's creative. And, you know, with those two men standing in my corner, I almost, you know, I felt obligated to, you know, to find success and to build good relationships, because if I took a day off, I knew they weren't going to. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it turns out through conversation later in life, my expectations for myself were much higher than the ones they had for me. But here we are, and we still managed to stay close, even though we're family. We argue a little bit, but my mom, she got with a guy named John when I was about 5. They never actually got married. That's due to some of my sister's health problems, and, you know, well, I can tell you about that if you want to hear about it. But they were together from the time I was 5 till I was almost 18, and, you know, that's the dad that I had, and we're still close too. He's smart. This is a smart guy. So, but he's kind of blue collar, working class type of dude, and that's how he likes to live his life, and I respect that about him too. But, you know, he had an office gig right out of college, and it didn't last very long, and he ended up getting on board with his dad doing heavy equipment, and he's one of the best at it. And he managed to do a lot of things with that, but he just had to break his back a little more. But he's happy about it. But he helps me a lot on the personal finance side, because he's really meticulous, and those are two different things: business finance and personal finance. And I'm, you know, navigating the waters of all of it, you know, the last handful of years, especially having a family. I've got a wife. We're 5 years, or yeah, we'll have been married 5 years in October, and a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. So, you know, everything's new, and so I talk a lot. I'll be honest. If I can get a word in, I'll probably find a way to. But I try to take a step back and gain as much as I can and listen to, because there is an influence you can get from anybody, be it what to do or what not to do. And I'm blessed and privileged to have the people that I have.
Yeah, you got to have. I'm big on that on mentors, and they can be from the books you read or the people you follow on social media or podcasts you listen to or in person.
We have all the resources in our pocket, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's no excuse not to.
Yeah, and you can learn anything. You know, go to YouTube University, or I've done a bunch of paid programs of different things I wanted to learn about social media or business or sales or whatever, and it's pretty cool. And even you know, you look at Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and the Tiger Woods and the best athletes, and Neil was talking about, there's a book called The Trillionaire Coach of like Steve Jobs and these high performing business people all have, mentors or coaches or whatever you want to call them. You got to have somebody outside looking in and giving you a different perspective and pushing you, as far as you can go in the right direction and giving you advice.
Absolutely true. Yeah, and it's cool that those are the names that you mentioned because, and I don't want to downgrade anything about the Western industry because I love it, but certain people within aren't the best about looking outside.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of things we can take from other industries that can apply to ours, especially people as successful as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I mean, I'm very critical. I just, I'm going to speak my mind but I think the Western industry, is usually behind on trends. We like to do things old school, but
there's something to be had about that because that kind of fits the lifestyle. But
right
on the business end of it, you have to have an open mind.
And even though you have that old school mentality, it's like these brands just sit on their pockets and don't listen to anybody, is what it seems like. Because I said this on an episode the other day, but these fishing shirts, it took several years for a Western brand, to come out with a fishing shirt. They missed out on millions of dollars of the market and by being late to the game. And boots, for sure, is another one. Like I like pointy toe and wild and different stuff, and nobody was filling that gap. It was Justin and Tony Lama and a few other ones or whatever, and they're all the same: big wide square toe or old round toe and plain colors, and they might put a crazy top on there or something, but nobody was making them unless you got them custom made. And now, people finally started to realize it. Y'all have some cool boots coming out, like R. Watson and like RC and these different boots, and there's options, and it's like, where has that been? Like, why does nobody see that? Like, does nobody talk to any, the market and see what people want? And the same way was like with Cinch, is they said when they got started, they went and talked to, rodeo guys and calf ropers and stuff. And everybody was wearing different brands of jeans because nobody wanted to wear 13 MWZs all the time.
Yes.
And,
Peepaw Wranglers.
Those. I mean, I've worn them. They have their place, but not everybody wants to wear them all the time. There's different people want different stuff. So they served a purpose there. And it's like, the Western industry, and besides apparel, there's different trends on whatever topic you want to get to. But, I think it's, it's never a cutting edge thing, I like to go out and like be real wild, see how wild we can get, and then, if you have to dial it back, you can or whatever.
When you have a stock collection, we probably have, I don't want to toot our horn, but we probably have the edgiest stock boot collection. Like you can buy right now, it's available.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of color, but you can look at the numbers and it reflects that like the electric purple that we have is 1 to 10 to 10. But people look at the electric purple and like, damn, those are loud. That's cool. I wonder who made those.
Yeah.
And then they go to the website and it's like, oh, now that's something I would actually wear.
Yeah.
But it's the color that drew them in. But there are the color people that do want to stand out. So we have a unique opportunity because by most production standards, we're pretty small batch. Even on the dealer end, our MOQ is like 12 per style. And that's you design it from the ground up. And that's an option that a wholesale dealer has. They can sit down with us or a rep and say, I want this toe, this heel, this sole, these colors, all of it. And it's affordable. And then even to the individual, we have a special order program. I don't use the term custom because to me, custom entails like what Clay does, where it's measure this, measure that, build to last. This one has your name on it. We don't do that. I have A through triple E widths. I have 3 through 17 size. Like we can fit most anybody, but it is try some stuff on. How does this feel compared to this? Better one, better two. And that's how the size is determined. Then you design it from the ground up. So I coined those special order. But I mean, you can get into a special order boot for $600-$700 and go up from there. We've got all the exotic options too. So I like to consider us like the economy handmade, if you want to call it that. But the opportunity I meant was that, like at NFR, who's working our booth? Me, my uncle, his wife, my mom and grandma were there this year because we needed more help. Like everybody's family, and we're not disconnected from the ground floor. You know, like I consider that the mail room, and we're listening to what everybody's got to say and what people want to see, and I don't have to look at reports to see it. It's all, you know, words and conversations in my head, and I hope that I can retain that. Which honestly, to be a domestic manufacturer, we kind of have to stay at that level because when you get to a larger scale, all your competition's overseas. They're all manufactured in Mexico or Cambodia or whatever, and you can't compete with the price. So, you know, the value has to be USA, Texas made. So I'm just going to retain that. And as long as I make a living, I'm happy. I'm not out here trying to be Steve Jobs.
Yeah. I think people are being more conscious of that, of buying, you know, buying local, buying made in Texas, made in USA. I mean, you can't, there's a certain market where, I mean, people are going to buy what they can afford, but, you know, if you can pay a little bit extra here or there to get those locally sourced products, and know you're helping out a small town, a family, you know, and that's a huge thing too now is building a brand, building a personal brand, you know, letting them know y'all's story and that you are supporting this small town, that you have a family, and this is all those people have a family.
Just before I forget, I really appreciate the opportunity because I don't get like a lot of people get the brief version of this, and you know, to have the opportunity for a real sit down to go through the whole timeline, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's super important no matter what you do to build, you know, to put yourself out there and tell your story. And, you know, the people I listen to in the mainstream deal, in Bradley and Ty Lopez and Roy Vaden, I was listening to one with him this morning, and, you know, they're saying that that's the direction it's headed, is people are going to buy from, you know, people that they know, that they like, that they trust. That's always been the sales deal. Well, you can make videos and post pictures and post content, and people can spend enough time with you that they're in the human brain. I can't remember the numbers, but like the human brain does not know that they're spending time with you on a podcast, on a video or whatever. They just know, they hear your voice, they see your face. And after so many hours, it's like you have so many hours and you're an acquaintance. And then you have so many hours and you're a friend. Even though you've never met in person, the brain tells that person that it's a friend. And then at so many hours, you know, you're a close friend. And
so you're saying that through content, you can build a personal connection to somebody.
Right. And so when they think, like, if they've seen you for, you know, they've watched 20 hours of your stuff, telling this, looking at the making boots or whatever it is, they're going to associate that. And then when they buy boots, they're like, yeah, I'm going to buy it from my buddy Caiden, not even knowing you, you know, never met in person. And I feel like social media is that way a lot. Like, it's like, you know, this person's like, no, but I'm friends with them on Facebook, and I see them all the time. So it's like, and then you see them in person, and that's
kind of the case of you and I.
Yeah, you kind of already know because you spent so much time seeing each other on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. It's kind of a cool, I guess, if you however you want to look at it. But I think it is the new way, you know, where the market's headed.
Well,
and I think probably with y'all being, you know, a family company, y'all have the opportunity to to build that. Whereas a Justin or whatever of the world, they're a little bit more disconnected.
Well, I hinted at that, but that's the thing. People like that are, by business standards, very successful, but that's one of the things that comes along with it. You can't, and I'm figuring that out now. You can't do everything, and that's this year. I have some good people under me that have really helped carry the weight, because I don't put the hours in that I used to now that I've got kids and everything. But there were so many situations that are like, I'm the end of the line. Like, we don't know what to do. We got to ask Caiden. And I was like, well, look, that's worked for a while, but if we're going to grow, that can't be the case. So, there's give and take to all that. But like you said, it's really an opportunity for everybody to be able to build a connection with the world like that I would say for no cost. I mean, it does cost something. There's a reason that people that specialize in it get paid so well, but at least starting out, like there is a good opportunity to grow without having to invest a lot. And I mean, honestly, I can tell you that for a given fact, because I've rarely paid for any exposure. Like all the growth that we've had's organic for the most part. We've got our paid sponsorships, but we've never done anything that bigger than some Cowboys and Indians ads, man. Yeah, the last commercial was done by a local guy, and he didn't charge anything because he just said, I really wanted to do it. I had an idea in my head, and I just wanted to have an opportunity. And I was like, well, the next time I got a paying job, you're my guy.
Yeah, and I think also, like, if you put the right product out, it speaks for itself.
Word of mouth's still very important.
Yeah, and putting it in the right hands. If you I had Cody and Erica Archie on here, and they're influencers or whatever, got a big following and posted a lot of content, and brands send them stuff all the time just to get eyeballs on it, because they know. I think social media is the way to go. If you're in business, we talked about this on one, but like, you can target whoever you want. It's not like you're putting it in Cowboys and Indians and you don't really know who's going to see it, but you can get on Facebook and they know so much about each one of us that you can target yourself or whoever in a certain area. I heard somebody talking about in a social media deal, they were talking about running Facebook ads, and they said that they were jacking around with one of their friends or something, and they targeted it to where he was like the only one that saw it, like targeted it down to where he was and like all his habits and interests or whatever.
They geofenced him.
Yeah, and just targeted him to just jack with him.
He's probably asking other people, like, have y'all seen this stuff? Yeah. No, man, it's just you, I guess.
Yeah, and they were saying, they were jacking with them of, we always think you think something and then it pops up as an ad on your phone.
Oh, yes,
and
it's uncanny.
So that's what they were doing to him. They would talk about something, then they'd start running some kind of ad like that to him. But it's crazy what you can do with social media, and marketing is something that I've been very interested in, and it's cool because there's nothing set. It's always evolving and changing. Y'all know this through the company. You can't just always make the same boot. You've got to change. People's tastes change and trends change.
What you're saying is a very in-depth and ongoing conversation that we've had, and I'm trying to portray the real value of social and the World Wide Web to the older people of my organization that use it but don't understand how powerful it is.
Yeah.
But I tried to explain the analytical side of it's ridiculous, because what the business term of use here is ROI. Like, what's your proven return on the time or money that you've invested in this stuff? And it's like, hey, like you mentioned, the Cowboys and Indians ad. It's cool. It's a cool thing to be a part of. It's a great publication, but they can tell you how many magazines they've shipped, but like how many times somebody's flipped that open, looked at the ad, went to the website because they saw the ad, bought something, like how many sales were produced by that magazine. There's no real way of knowing, but you go on the Meta universe back in there, and you can see how long somebody looked at the post, how many people clicked through it, etc. Like, it's a wealth of information that most people don't even know exists.
Yeah,
I'm still learning.
Yeah, it's me too. It's a lot to learn, and you can run an ad and put $100 in it or $1,000 or whatever you want to put, and then at the end of the campaign, you're going to know you reached this many people, and whatever you wanted them to visit your website or go and purchase, it'll tell you that this many people went to the website and this many people purchased, or this many people went, added to cart and abandoned. And there's so many things you can do. If you're a business, you definitely need to be learning it, putting money into it, or paying somebody to do it. And besides that part, I mean, just the organic part, just you, going out, posting your boots or whatever boots you're going to wear for the day, going to the rodeo in these or whatever, that's a big deal also.
Well, I just recently took the reins back on our social accounts. So the things that you're going to start seeing pop up are generated by myself. But most people that I've asked for advice from, they all say that, I've got all the content in the world right outside my office door, and that factory is personal. And that's something that most of our comparable competition really can't touch, because that's the thing. If you have stuff made down in Mexico, for example, you can't have your social person or your marketing team or whatever go down there and create content in the factories that are making those products, because I hate to tell you, but most of them have another brand on the production line right next to it that shouldn't be in the picture at all, or there might be some things going on that they don't need people to see. I've got nothing to hide.
Mm-hmm.
But the way, and you might know this already, but something I learned recently that translates social media to commerce statistically is that 64%. This year, last year, 2023. I don't remember how many people were in the survey, but this survey showed that 64% of people 18 to 34 bought something from a social media ad, like directly from social media. Either they clicked the sponsored post and it, sent them to a different link, or they clicked shop on the Instagram top page and got directed that way. But the sales stemmed from a social media click. 64. I was a pretty heavy percentage based on what I would have guessed, but I believe, and I don't want to misquote this, but I believe it was $9 billion gross sales on social media commerce in the U.S. last year.
Mm-hmm.
By 2027, they anticipate that to be $60 billion. So imagine that amount of growth in such a short period of time, and all of it stemming from where people spend the majority of their time on that thing.
Yeah.
It's like a necessity at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's makes life very easy, and sometimes it'd be nice to not have it, but it's kind of like, talked about this before, like that's just what it is, and you can either bitch and moan about it, or you can learn about it and try to use it to your advantage and grow your industry, whether that's ranching or bootmaking or all of us in the Western industry. And basically we're battling the other side that's trying to, put the whole industry out of business. But I think, have y'all seen a growth in sales or anything since like Yellowstone and all this stuff's been going on? It seems like even people I know from town are buying cowboy boots and cowboy hats.
I don't know that I could reflect actual sales numbers to you that are based on that, because there's nothing that ties me directly to it. But yeah, I mean, you can see the activity in the industry, and you know, you probably know more of these guys than I do, but like the diehards that get upset because because all the girls are wearing white boots that are plastic, or because such and such is, you know, wearing his hat backwards and doesn't even realize it. But the way I see it is, hey, just like, hey, your fly's undone. Just go tap the guy on the shoulder and say, hey, flip that thing around, cowboy. Mm-hmm. And you know, the thing is, yeah, it's kind of goofy, but they just want to be like you. If you're the real deal, I don't think you should get your feelings hurt or, you know, feel offended because some guy's wearing his hat backwards, for example. It's like, he just wants to be like you.
Yeah. And if you go hate on them or make fun and or be a dick to them, then you're just going to drive that person away from the industry.
Right. They're going to be like, damn, we don't want to be cowboys. They're all dicks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but right now it's like, you know, Cole Hauser's like David Hasselhoff, mm-hmm. and I think that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like the way his hat's shaped. I don't think there's a band on it sometimes.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's good. It is. It's good for all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that as far as Hollywood goes, I think that Taylor has retained about as much authenticity as you can, mm-hmm. for the situation that he's in. So,
yeah. And so he's directing, I would say him, or you can say whatever you want, but I would say Taylor Sheridan is a huge part in Yellowstone of directing the attention to our industry and our world. And then that gives us the opportunity to, you know, do something with it. You can call these people dumb for looking funny or whatever, or you can be like, hey, awesome, glad to have you here at the rodeo. Hey, look over here. These are way better boots, you know. Well, maybe we can hook you up with this or this hat or something, you know, or whatever. You can, you know, welcome them in, and then, you know, who knows, they may, you know, get deeper and spend a lot more money and have horses in training with a trainer, or buy a ranch, or no telling.
Well, I think we both know this. There are wealthy people that have made it ranching and in some form of the Western industry, but there's a lot of other money out there in the world, and these guys are part of it. Mm-hmm. So bring them in, spread the wealth.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll tell you what, I'd say that some of the most popular boot styles that we have, and I should have brought one, you can pull them up on the website. They're under, I think they're under their own section, work. We just call them work boots, but you know, every boot's a work boot. It just depends on your job. Mm-hmm. But these are, relatively, plain, you know, like one color all the way up. Some like wide U-toe, like Wellington type of stuff with a Vibram sole on it. And it's like workwear from like an industrial era, mm-hmm. you know, but it's constructed in a very similar way in our factory, same process. And they're not cheap. Like they're over $300 retail, and they're not cowboy boots. I think people in the Northwest call them lettuce pickers, mm-hmm. but if I had one, you'd know what I was talking about. But we sell the dog out of those, and it's most of the time not to the cowboy type, mm-hmm. but there are other groups of people that carry a similar value and want to, you know, buy a domestically made product, and it's no different for me. Mm-hmm. I'll make whatever boots are popular, but I like making this type of stuff. I like the relationships that I've made with the true blue, multi-generational ranching type, the real deal cowboys, the ones that build the image. They are my bread and butter, and I like to take care of those guys, but I just want them to understand that you can't do everything that I need. So, like I said, don't get offended that we make stuff that's not so cowboy, but yeah, I'm spreading the footprint, I guess you could say. That's actually, I should use that more often. That's a good way of putting it, being with boots and all.
Yeah, just I think you just look at the market like you go. I've been trying to. I got more aware, I guess, and instead of going to the mall, which most people probably don't go to the mall anymore, but I like to go buy stuff in person. But instead of going to a different kind of store and buying, my easy shoes or whatever you want to call them, most people don't wear boots all the time. I try to at least go to the Western store and buy.
If you had my boots, you'd wear them all the time.
Go buy, some Twisted X or Ariats or whatever, and it's good that they finally realize that there's a huge market and that most people that are driving on the road all the time, or, they're going to the pool, they're going to the beach, they're doing other things, and there's another market for that. They're going to have their cowboy boots and they're going to have easy shoes. And
I was just joshing. I wore Vans the whole way.
Yeah. I wear Crocs most of the time.
Of course you do.
Alex,
do you have the Crocs Spurs?
No, I ain't got no Spurs on there.
Dude, flip that strap back.
Yeah. Alex Hermosi, he I think he's wearing something else now, but he wore them forever, and he said they're just the most utilitarian shoe. You can wear them anywhere you want, and you don't have to wear socks if you don't want to. You can wear them to the gym. You can wear them out wherever.
They're amphibious.
Yeah. Yeah, and anyways, I wear different stuff, but I like to wear Crocs too. But yeah, I'm just saying and you also look at like just whatever market you want to target. But cowboys are going to wear things besides 13 MWZs and Justin Ropers, and there's money there that a lot of the industry misses out on sometimes. Just like with the Hey Dude thing, everybody's got Hey Dudes, and it's like, I'm sure that there probably is already out and I don't know about it, but I don't have any Hey Dudes anyway. But, if somebody should have saw that trend coming, and put it out.
So a good example of kind of retaining an open mind on the design side, I learned this from my buddy Jeremy Gerard at Kimes. So he was a rep for me up in Wyoming for about a year, and he carried Kimes and a couple other things at the time as an independent. But Kimes brought him in as an in-house guy, and it's a good fit for him. He team ropes and plays golf, so and lives in Phoenix, so of course it's a good fit.
Yeah.
But I told him probably at the last market. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but that jean that has a little bit of stretch in it, they call it the Roger, and it's a men's jean. I said, man, I see a lot of ladies wearing that Roger. And he's like, well, it's a men's jean and lots of men's wear it. I wear it. But he said that jean was designed with the lady in mind. I was like, men's jeans for ladies, cutting edge. And he's like, it kind of just played out the right way, but he's like, you can look at our sales numbers. Those go a lot of different places. And I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking, what do I have that can, you want to have the most opportunities to sell a given product. Mm-hmm. So, what do I have that can cross over? Shit, I've already got it. All of our most popular styles, be it the ones that started as lady styles, but men wanted them in their size, or vice versa. Our top 10 most popular styles we carry in B, C, D, double E widths, size range 5 to 15, and we can always make them in any size that is not listed there.
Yeah, so you can cross over.
Yeah, because that's definitely like I said, I like the Wilder boots and pointy toe boots and stuff, and like old school looking ones. And
there was nothing, but they made them for women as fashion boots, but they never thought that a guy wanted to be fashionable or cool looking, I guess.
So West Texas Cowboys to me right now look like 1950. Mm-hmm. Because that's what the boots were. They had shorter tops, like 10, 11-inch tops. They didn't have a lot of color then because they didn't have the leather tanning capabilities that they have now. But they had that toe you're talking about, like that undercut heel, the stuff that people call punchy now. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. And like the cuff jeans and everything. And I love it. And I think you'll see more of that going forward. But right now, our numbers are still highest with our cutter toe, which is that it kind of looks like a pig nose. It cuts back and it's rounded on top, square on the bottom. But you've got the, like what ropers were 10 years ago, like the old man boot. Mm-hmm. Now they're the old man boot. And the ropers square toes are what ropers were. So now you've got a little bit older gentleman, what one would call middle-aged, transitioning away from a wide square toe double stitch, and they kind of need that transition item. So they can't go from this to this, but they can go from this to this. Yeah. And just kind of bring it in a little bit. So I think that's why they work so well, because they're not wide, but they're not narrow, and so it works well for us. But it won't hurt my feelings whenever, like the ones I'm wearing, the ones sitting there, whenever those kind of hit the mainstream, that'll be all right. I like those.
Yeah, it's funny how trends change. I'm sure it'll come back full circle. Like you said, everybody's trying to look like the 50s, and then it's, I'm sure it'll circle back. I remember when I was a kid is when the wide square toes came out. And that was like the trending thing, going from a round toe to a square toe. I'm sure it'll circle back. And
that used to be what we made 40,000 pair a year of, and now I've got 4 styles in stock that are wide square toes to like 50 others. So maybe I'm ahead of the times. I don't know. But
no, I think you always need to be, trying to stay on that cutting edge, because if you can be the first one to that trend, then you hit the jackpot. But
I would say most people, I'm gonna backpedal there. I think that there are a few people that want to set trends and want to be independent. The majority of people will follow that, but when it starts to become everything that you see, that's when they start to transition away.
Yeah.
And that's what the square toe thing was. It was like the round toe that they did in the double stitch welt, and then it became the square toe with the double stitch welt, and you still had the old men like, there's no round toes in here, what are we going to do? And now it's like, everybody's here, what's the next thing? 10, 15 years is normally how long it lasts.
Yeah. I think like a pointy round toe might be there. I've got an old pair of boots.
I'm going to shout out Outpost. That's probably our biggest dealer. They're in Manhattan, Kansas. Their website's outpostboots.com. They buy a lot of boots, and every single one of them was designed with our sales rep, Brad, at a table with them. They are not afraid to be edgy, and they do a fair amount of like what you might consider a peepaw boot, like an R toe, J toe, like kind of a sharper round toe, but they'll do it on like a gray rough out or something. So they will combine like 2 different sections and kind of just become, well, I've never seen anything like that. I kind of have to buy it because I'm not going to see it anywhere else. So I would dare say that they've done more innovating of our boots than I have lately, but they're also paid for once they go out the door. So their stuff takes precedent over mine anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a couple good dealers like that. I'm not just going to say like they're the only one. Justin Cargill, they sell quite a few boots through his shop, and they do some cool stuff too. I saw one posted today that was, just like I was talking about. Well, we call a 17 toe, but it's what most people would call an R toe, but kind of a punchy looking boot. I liked it. But I mean, people never stop surprising me. I just give them leather swatches and a design book, and I'm like, nothing will surprise me now. Oh, there they go.
Yeah, it's and designing's a whole thing. Like going in with that blank canvas. I've got a old book it says Cowboy boots, and it's like the history, and got all those old ones in there and stuff. And I try to, if I'm gonna get some made, I try to draw some inspiration from that. But it's hard, and getting anything built, spurs, saddles, building a house is super hard. It's like you have all these ideas, and it's like, what do I even want to do here? It's like, and then you finally just get to where you don't even care. But that's on another note. But yeah, it's marketing's cool. Just look what the Stanley Cup deal.
Yeah.
All they did, they had the same product for years and just switched the marketing up and became even more wealthy off of it, I guess.
Yeah. Isn't it sad how everybody just puts a target on their back after they're successful, though?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope I get successful enough that I get targeted.
Yeah. When you have haters, when you have some success.
Yeah.
But I like to step back and look at those different perspectives of business and how and why people are doing things. It's like, it looks stupid, but it's really genius, and sometimes it is just stupid, but a lot of times it's genius.
I would say Crocs fall into that category, but I'll sorry, I know you're a fan
of the genius category. You mean? What's your favorite pair of boots? Is it, if it's not the ones you got on, then you just gotta kind of describe them. But what's
So I've got good assets that kind of help prioritize my orders on the supply chain side. So if I need it, they can come up with it. We've got elephant and assorted colors and finishes, and you're not going to see much of that because there's not much of a supply. Ostrich, however many different colors, Nile crocodile, Cayman crocodile, American alligator, assorted, cowhides, obviously. I even have, you familiar with carpincho? It's, what a capybara is?
Mm-mm.
It's like a South American nutria rat.
Yeah.
I think in is it Portuguese, whatever their native language is, it means like water pig, but they look like giant guinea pigs. But I've got leather that's made from those guys, and it looks kind of like pig skin, but it's really soft, but it's like porous, so it has little spots all over it. It makes really good boots, but I've got some off the wall stuff. Personally, I want somebody to be in something that is comfortable, that they like the look of, that's easy to maintain, that'll give them a good value, last them a good long while. And ostrich is that. There's a reason that it's been a staple for like forever. Mm-hmm. I personally have like my 3 or 4 go-tos, and they're all belly ostrich. I don't necessarily always need them to look fancy, and but I've even got some guys that like ride feedlots up in Kansas, and they're the ones that taught me this. They ordered the belly ostrich boots because the price is very similar to cowhide, but evidently like ammonia or something that's in like urine or whatever that they're in all the time.
Yeah.
It pulls all the moisture out of like cowhide leather and just dries it out. So like within 6 months, their boots have giant cracks in them and they're stiff as a board. And they said, ostrich doesn't do that. That's what we need. And I feel bad for the first dude that wore like a $700 pair of full quills to go work the feedlot, but that's probably how they figured it out. But it is tough stuff. And I think because it's kind of synonymous with like the higher end, people don't put that together, but we make quite a few. that are made to use.
What's 2 pairs of boots like? What's the best hide to have for a working cowboy that's in the mud and the cow crap and all that? And then what do you think's the best hide to go to town in? Go to Fort Worth?
Have you ever asked yourself why it costs so much to get paid? Hey everyone, this is a show that has a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners on, and the number one rule in business is to get paid, right? If you own a business, there's a good chance you're overpaying for credit card processing, and there's an even better chance that you're getting terrible customer service. At Diversified Payments, we make the payment process simple for both the customer and the business. Being based in Central Texas, we're able to offer business owners personal customer service while saving them money on their credit card processing fees. And we're the only payment company that I know of that's deeply rooted in the ranching and rodeo industries. If you think you're paying way too much in card processing fees, or you can't get in touch with your payment processor when there's an issue, go to diversifiedpayments.com/wealthycowboy.
I love the look of reptile skins, and our Nile crocodile is just in the last handful of years. I guess they've just taken strides in the tanning process. But like Caiden, which most people don't know this, but like I said, ostrich has been a staple for a long time. At some point, the ostrich market, ostrich all comes from South Africa. They're farmed like we farm cattle. They've got ostrich farms. And just like us, our cattle market is like their value is based upon the meat. That's how ostrich is in South Africa. They eat ostrich like we eat beef for the most part. They still eat beef, but they've got all these ostrich, right? They sell all the grade 1 skins to Europe for handbags and stuff like that. And then we get like grades 2s and 3s. But if the ostrich meat market isn't good, our skin price goes up to cover that deficit. So I want to say sometime in the early 2000s, there was like a bird flu that was getting all these ostriches, and they couldn't consume the meat. So they had to put all the value of the bird into the skins. Ostrich price went, and they had to bring in another affordable exotic option. That's where Caiden came in. And now Caiden is like your closest to budget friendly reptile skin. They're okay, but they won't last. I wouldn't guarantee any of them for more than a couple of years if somebody wears them regularly. But these Nile crocodiles are tanned so much better, and they have they have a better hand, meaning they're more flexible and softer, and they make better boots, and they're beautiful. But I still lean towards ostrich because you can wear them day in and day out, and they're really just going to look the same. If someone's really going to be in the shit, we use what's referred to as Taurus shoulders, but they're like a heavy pebbled bull shoulder. And we're talking like 6 ounce plus thickness with a little bit of texture. And I use Cape Buffalo. Cape Buffalo is actually pretty affordable. We have it in like this like specialty series. It's only like $20 to $40 higher than a comparable cowhide boot. But I would recommend those because the weight of the leather will forego overstretching. If you have a cowhide, or even the ostrich is kind of prone to overstretch if you don't, which we get some of that out when we last them by wet lasting. So we still wet last. It kind of adds a couple days to the whole process. But this whole thing, at least from the middle of the shaft down, is soaked, and then we form it over the molds, and that shrinks around the molds as they dry, and that takes some of the pre-stretch out of it, but you can still expect a boot to stretch a little bit and conform where it needs to. That's the biggest benefit of an all leather construction, be it the outer leather and the lining leather being full grain. But if someone's wet, dry, they get wet and then they wear them the entire day after that, you can get a lot more stretch out of them. So something heavier would not allow it to go as far. Yeah. So there's my recommendation. And I had a pair of Taurus shoulder boots that I wore for quite a while, and they like saved my toes from getting chopped off because my mower was like plugged up and it just quit. But it turns out it was just a big ball of wet grass caught up in the blade.
Yeah.
And when I kicked it under there and knocked it loose, kicked back on, and it just, took a little chunk of it, about yay wide. But
yeah, that could have been
it just
bad.
went through the top leather, and then it stopped at the lining, and I was like, that very well could have been.
Yeah, good thing you weren't wearing Crocs. What about snakeskin? You ever had any snakeskin boots?
So I can still make Python. I've got some, which this stuff's probably still left over from the Cavender's days. We have some smaller Python skins from Singapore, but I can get like the larger Burmese Pythons too. We have those, and we those pretty exclusively get used for ladies' boots. They don't have to be, but yeah, I mean, I don't keep any stock boots, but we've got those options for special order. And,
Yeah.
And don't talk to me about rattlesnake.
I've got a pair. I mean, I guess most of them are all Python, but I've got a pair of Lucchese's. That was about the only ones I could find. I asked even a guy that was building boots about making some snake skins, and he said, "You bring the snake?" No, I don't know where the snake is.
I got a good batch of Diamondback skins last year, and about half of them made it through the entire process without getting torn. Mm-hmm. And then another half of that actually shipped out the door came back because they tore later on. And I'm like,
They're just not very tough.
these look so cool, but let's not mess with it. They're paper thin,
Mm-hmm.
and we actually, like, even those Python skins, they're better, but they're still pretty thin and delicate. So we actually back those with like a light canvas so that they can't, so that they have more structure behind it and they can't stretch.
Yeah, those of mine, like, I mean, they've been pretty good and they're super comfortable because they're soft to wear. But like you said,
I'd keep the conditioner on those.
Yeah, I mean, they've made it a long time. I haven't conditioned them in a while, but I just wear them every once in a while. But they're probably 6-7 years old, I bet. They're starting to scale a little bit, but probably time to just get some new ones. But yeah, they are. You can tell, like, they're so soft that, like, you don't have a lot of support there, I guess.
That's kind of how that Carpincho stuff is. We sometimes I'll put like an extra lining in there, but that's one of those things. And picture this. Traditionally, 100 years ago, every shoe that everybody wore was built just like these are. Mm-hmm. There was no injection molded this or direct attach that. It was all like a welted construction, all leather. Soles were leather, heels were leather, because that's all they had. They didn't have all this technology. So everyone understood a new pair of shoes, boots, whatever, is not really comfortable. They have a break-in period. Mm-hmm. People don't really understand that now, because when you buy a pair of Crocs, for example, they feel the same from the first day to the last day. And that's the case with most shoes. So you kind of have to read the individual to determine if you want to educate them or just make them happy. So I'd probably say that a fair amount of people that buy our boots are not in the size that I would recommend, because they bought the size that fit just right the very first day.
Yeah.
My best fitting boots, I could hardly get on for a week. I soaked them in the bathtub and wore them. But over the course of a couple weeks, they conform and they break in, and that's technically how it should be.
Yeah.
I don't care. I just want everybody to be happy. So,
Yeah,
but I can
weigh your
tell.
options.
I can tell by looking if a boot's too big or too small. You can tell by the, especially if you see one that's come in for repair or something. The wear spot should be at the widest part of the sole, which is where the ball of your foot would be. The widest part of your foot goes in the widest part of the boot, right? So that's where the biggest wear spot should be. If it's too far back, boot's too long. If the back of the heel is worn off, like much more than the entire heel surface. Mm-hmm. They're dragging, so they've got too much heel slip, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the first handmade pair of boots I got were Becks, and
those things are tanks.
Yeah,
I've disassembled a pair of Becks. They're a lot.
Yeah, they're big and heavy, but these lasted like 6 years. Had the Beck Tech sole, which is still good. The boots are starting to crack because I didn't take very good care of them. But when I first got them, I was all excited. I couldn't get my foot in the right one, so I sent them back. They're like, "Oh yeah, we'll stretch them." Got them back, basically the same, and I was like, "Okay, lots of baby powder." Pulled in there, and just warm walking. I was at Tarleton then, walking to class, freaking. He just had to suffer for a little bit, and I think after about the, however long it took, a few days or a week or whatever of wear, they felt super good. I mean, like I said, I wore them for several years.
I would imagine. So, my father and brother-in-law, they wore Becks, and Callie and I were together for probably a couple years before we got married. And, from the start, I was like, let me make y'all some boots. It's kind of like you should feel obligated to.
Yeah.
And her dad said, as soon as I wear these Becks out, I'll get some from you, I swear. And we'd been married for a couple of years, and I was like, he's never going to wear these boots out. And one day he's like, I think they're pretty worn out. I need a pair of boots. Yeah. That's how long it took. So credit to those guys. They build workhorses.
Yeah. I wouldn't say they're, I haven't seen any fancy ones or
they all pretty well look the same.
Yeah. They're just, a work boot, and I wouldn't say they're the most comfortable the way they build them, but they do seem to last. So something to be said there. We've talked a lot about, at the first, about the history and all that. And I could tell you cared a lot about your family and the boot company and everything. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Like what's for your family to carry on for generations, is from the boot company to personal life?
So, like I mentioned, I'm the 6th generation to live in Nocona, and my kids are the 7th. And the only way that happens in a small community like that is because we all know that it's harder to make a fair amount of money when everything's more low budget. So the only way that happens is by creating, family businesses and giving the next generation an opportunity to stay. Because if there's nothing, then we have to, what's our career going to be? And there's that question mark floating around their future. And I'm not, I hope that when the time comes for that conversation, I don't sound like I'm trying to back my kids into a corner. But I do want to give them every opportunity to stay and be close to us and have that same close-knit family dynamic that I have. It's not a have to, but I'll feel like I failed if I don't give them that, at least the opportunity. So that's really what it is. And you should come by sometime, because you see all those faces, and you have like Zarcy, who runs our sewing department, who she's never had a job outside of making boots. I take that back. She drove a truck for a year in the transition from Nocona boot closing to Bill and Jim opening, from 99 to 2001, she drove a truck. But she started in Nocona boot when she was 18, and now she's like 65. And all she's ever done is make boots, and she's great at it. And I've got a guy named Lonnie, which he just went part-time because he's older as well. But he, similar situation. And all he's done is cut leather. So he cuts all of our exotic stuff and a little bit of everything. But he's back there with the clicker dies, punching out the pieces, and he gets the best yields. But he can cut 100 pair a day to anybody else's 50. And that's what I meant earlier when I said they really don't realize how talented they are, because it's not something that I could even step up and do to that caliber. I know enough to get myself in trouble when it comes to all the little parts that come into play. But yeah, it's not just my kids having the opportunity to carry on that legacy, but to continue to give these people an opportunity to do what they know and what they're comfortable with. Because, I mean, I don't know what place we'd be in our lives if everything that we'd ever done was, like, say you're 55 or 60 years old and you've done the same thing for 40 years and it's like upended.
Just gets taken away.
Yeah, it's upended. Like, what do you do? That's a scary thought. So that's what it means.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool that it's, so deeply rooted in family. And it sounds like the whole company is basically family. And that's a huge part in building a successful company. I think I haven't done it, but in just my observation is culture is huge. You don't have a lot of turnover and hiring people that don't care about their job and doing a shoddy job and all that stuff.
Well, and I guess the future will determine whether it was the best idea or the worst idea we had, but everything we do literally has my name on it. So it carries a lot of weight. And it's not something I can just, which people have, Rod Patrick sold his name, and I wouldn't if I were you, but whatever, man. I'm sure you got a good chunk, but I don't think you can just, like, there ain't no selling Fenoglio Boot Company. It stays with Fenoglios or it's done.
Yeah. There's something to be said there too. Like, if you're, because that is a big part of business is, the big payday is the exit,
No, people build businesses to sell.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's kind of the goal a lot of times. And, there's definitely nothing wrong with that, but like you said, maybe not tie your name to it, let's pick a better name. And,
if you want to buy it, you can change the name to the Wealthy Cowboy Boot Company.
Yeah.
You're welcome to.
I don't think that's a very good name, but we'll
you kind of narrowed your market there.
Last question. What are you listening to in the truck, in the gym, working in the shop, whatever? You listen to podcasts, audibles, music?
So my mom was, she went to JUCO on a choir scholarship. She did pageants, and she's been a singer, and, since having kids and all, and, having to move on with life, she just kind of became like the wedding and funeral singer. But, like, there was always music, and she was always kind of like, hey, you want to do the talent show? So I can carry a tune. I like to sing along, but you're not going to hear it. But yeah, I'm a music guy, and it's very diverse. Like, you want to flip through the playlist right now. I think there was some, like, I'm on Shane Smith right now. I think that dude rocks.
Yeah.
Like that harmonious thing they got going on, and the freaking overall wearing fiddle dude. Like, they're killing it. Josh Ward's my dude. Like, he's like our front runner ambassador on the Texas music scene. He's like, when I need a more classic appeal, like, he's got the honky tonk music. I think there was some Yellow Wolf on the way up here. I like to get kind of hood. But then my side hustle, I like to braid. So I make, like, loping hacks and rope halters, quirts, stuff like that. Just enough, to throw in my booth at Western Heritage and Wichita Falls. But I get most of that time in the wee hours of the morning. So probably like 4 to 7 before the kids wake up. That's when I get my podcasts in. When I want to get political, I like Andy. I like Real AF, current events. That's kind of the way he's oriented. I read the 75 Hard book. I don't know when I want to start that program, but I'm going to. I started doing ice baths, so I feel like that's one of the steps that direction.
Yeah,
mind and body and all. But I also like I listen to some Rogan, depending on who he's got on, and then I like Bedros Keuilian. He's I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's the Armenian immigrant guy, self-made kind of. So I like to listen to his stories, but he's mostly like self-motivation.
Yeah. His are kind of the same. It's just him. I don't think
he repeats some of his stories quite a bit.
I've heard his story a bunch about
his dad working 4 jobs.
Yeah, and then
it's a great story, but
then when he came, I think it's funny when he was a personal trainer and he lived off of the Cokes.
Oh, Diet Coke and tuna fish.
Yeah.
Man, I am privileged in this regard. I've never been that broke.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's funny. And Andy Frisella too, you know, when he started his deal, he was living in the back of the supplement store, and
that helped me a lot because, you know, I didn't make a dime for 9 years or whatever he said. Finally turned a profit. And I was like, all right, man, I know I've been at it a while, but it ain't been that long.
Yeah.
It does take time. So
yeah, it's cool. Well, I enjoyed having you. Thanks for coming in. Y'all got a cool story, and I really like the brand that y'all have, a family company and made in Texas. And y'all go check out Fenoglio Boot Company. What about your social media? You want them to follow the boot company or you, or where they check everybody out?
I'm terribly inactive. I don't think I post when my kids are born. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's on IG. It's Fenoglio, just Fenoglio Boot Co. That's FENOG. The G is silent, like lasagna. There's an account for our Stockyard store. So we've got our factory retail store downtown Nocona, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6. And then the Fort Worth store keeps the same hours. It's in the Stockyards district on North Main, right next to the Best Hat store, in between that Los Vaqueros and Best Hat. You can go see those guys, follow their account. It's fenoglioboot.stockyards. And the website's fenoglioboot.com. So if you can spell that name, you can find it. Very, very specific.
Yeah, it pops up.
Yeah.
My wife's uncle, I work with them some and all that, and he had bought some, I think they were used, bought them off Facebook, some of y'all's boots, and he's like, yeah, I got these boots, I like them, they're like Fajoli's or something. And I was like, you mean Fenoglio? And he's like, I don't know. And he just kept calling them Fajoli's. I feel like I just quit correcting him.
It's fine. As long as he's got them and he's happy, I'm cool. That's probably going to be the case for a long time because, I mean, Lou Casey's been at it since 1883, and I still hear people call that Lou Cheese or Lou Cheesy. So
yeah,
it don't matter. That's the thing. They can't say it right, but the word itself is synonymous with quality, and that's what I want to achieve.
Right. I can't remember. I don't want to plug somebody else's company, but is y'all's? Is it hard to say, easy to wear? Was that y'all's motto, or is that somebody else?
Our slogan is "There's nothing finer than Fenoglio."
Okay, whose is that? I want to say it's a boot.
Oh shoot!
Do you know? I don't know. That's a good one though.
It is. I would. I mean,
I think
I'll make sure not to take it.
I heard that somewhere. We're gonna have to research that. But if it's not taken, y'all definitely. Need that.
I wish I would have had old Anderson Beans. There's no real cowboys in China, but then I might want to sell some boots in China. So
yeah.
Hey, there's actually a pretty big like cowboy boot following in Geneva, Switzerland. There's also a Red Dirt music festival in Geneva every year. If you didn't know, I have a dealer in Geneva, Switzerland. It's our only international dealer.
Cool. Yeah, if you're ever in Switzerland,
if you're in the U.S. listening to this, don't buy anything from Geneva. It's going to cost more to get it than to actually buy it.
Cool. Y'all follow Fenoglio Boot Co. And you can check them out on their website. Check them out at their stores. Share it out. I think there's some good stuff in here. They got an awesome story, and share it out, please. And we'll catch y'all next time.